everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here for a recent reads video, so I will be talking about all the books that I have read since my last recent reads video. So a bunch of these books I featured in a recent reading vlog that I did, where I was basically just reading a ton of fantasy romance books, especially a lot of sequels in fantasy or fantasy romance series. So without further ado, let's just get into it. I'm not going to talk about these next few books too much because, like I said, they were featured in that vlog. First up, I have Sapphire Flames by Ilona Andrews. This is the fourth book in their Hidden Legacy series. So if you know nothing about this series, it's an urban fantasy romance series. I had read the first three books of this series years ago, and I kept putting off continuing on with the series for really no good reason. And so finally, a few months ago, I reread those first three books, and so I'm just so excited that I have finally continued on into this next part of the series and this next trilogy. This is a kind of like a parallel universe. It takes place in Houston, but there is magic. There are these houses of families with different magical abilities, and they have the most power in this world, not just magically, but also politically. And so we have Catalina here. She is the new leader of her house, House Baylor, and she has a client come to her that is asking her to solve her mother and sister's murders, and things get very complicated from there. Our hero Alessandro comes into the mix. He is somewhat involved in this murder mystery, and these two actually have history in a couple of the previous books of the series, and I am just absolutely obsessed with this romance. I might love this couple a little bit more than Nevada and Rogan, which is really saying something because I consider Nevada and Rogan to be a top tier couple for sure, but these two are so much fun as well. So I cannot wait to see how their romance continues in the next couple of books in the series. This was so good. Had to give it 5 stars. Next up, we have The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is book 2 in her Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, which is a YA fantasy series. And basically, I'm not really seeing the hype of this series so far. I've now read 2/3 of the series, and I'm liking it for what it is. Like, I gave both this book and the first book 4 stars, but I'm not in love with the series. The basic premise is that we have Evangeline. This takes place in a very whimsical world. It definitely gives me vibes of Wonderland, like Alice in Wonderland, because there's a lot of like nonsense and whimsy going on. But anyways, Evangeline is in love with this guy who is about to marry her stepsister, and so she goes to Jax, who is the Prince of Hearts, to make a deal with him so that he will make sure that the wedding doesn't happen, and hijinks and shenanigans ensue basically. So I can't really go into the plot of this book without spoiling the first book, obviously, but there is a budding romance going on between Jax and Evangeline, but I'm just not as obsessed with it as I thought I was going to be. This series is just like enjoyable. I'll definitely pick up the third book, I don't know, probably in the next couple of months, just so that I can complete the series, but at the same time, I'm not like dying to pick up that last book. Next up, we have another YA fantasy. This is Ruthless Vows, the second and final book in the Letters of Enchantment duet by Rebecca Ross. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I didn't love it quite as much as Divine Rivals. Divine Rivals, if you've watched my top books of 2023, you will know that I adored that book. It was in my like top 3 favorite books of the year last year. This one was still a really beautiful story. I really enjoyed the direction that it went in, but it just wasn't quite as epic and all-consuming for me as Divine Rivals was, but I still really loved Iris and Roman's story. I love how the war being fought between these two gods progressed in the second book, and I'm definitely going to read more from Rebecca Ross. I know that she has a little bit of a backlist, and I've heard pretty good things about those books, but I definitely will check out future releases from her for sure. Next up, I have Ruthless Fae by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. I keep forgetting these authors' names, but this is the infamous Zodiac Academy series. Book 2 of said series, and I gave this one 4 stars like I gave book 1. These are just entertaining as hell. Are they high art? Are they literature? No. Are they a good time and full of, you know, magical college drama? Yes, and there are bully romance vibes. There is a student-teacher romance budding in this series for sure. The ending of every book is a crazy cliffhanger, so I definitely will be picking up the next books of the series, but I also just really need to be in the mood for this series to really enjoy it. I just realized I didn't talk about the synopsis of the Letters of Enchantment duet, but this one is about Iris and Roman. They are competing for a newspaper columnist job, and they start writing magical letters back and forth, and then, like I mentioned, there is this crazy magical war happening between two gods, Dacre and Enva, that these two characters get mixed up in. And then the basic synopsis of Zodiac Academy, we have Darcy and Tori, who are twins. They have been living in the human world. Then one day Professor Orion from Zodiac Academy shows up at their door and tells them that they are the lost heirs of Solaria, which is the magical land that Zodiac Academy is in. And yes, like I said, lots of bullying, lots of drama, lots of tea, and brewing romances. So, you know, just a fun time overall. And then next I have a couple of Harry Potter fan fictions that I read as a part of that vlog. The first one was Wait and Hope by Might Be Writing. This is a god tier Hermione fanfiction for me. Oh my god, because it just has some of my favorite tropes ever. So in this one, Draco and Hermione have been married for about a year or so. So they've been in a relationship for a few years. And Hermione gets into an accident because a part of her job is that she works with objects that have dark magic imbued in them. And so she comes across this object that like makes her pass out. And when she wakes up, she realizes that she has forgotten the last 6 years of her life, meaning that she has forgotten her entire relationship with Draco. And so this fanfic is the two of them finding their way back to each other. And this was perfection. I love marriage and trouble romances. I love the amnesia trope. I love second chance romances. And that is what this fanfic is. I thought this was absolutely stunning. I heard about this one from Jessin from Jessin Reads Romance, and I am just so thankful that she recommended this fanfic, because I had heard of this one, but it wasn't one that was on like my immediate TBR or anything like that until I heard her talk about it in her Best Books of 2023 video. So thank you so much, Jessin, because this absolutely is one of my top 5 favorite Hermione fics. Now, I'm also looking forward to reading Beginning and End by this same author, because that is going to be a prequel fic from Draco's POV, where we see the beginning of Draco and Hermione's relationship, you know, like 6 years before Wait and Hope takes place. So very excited to get to that fic for sure. I also read A Dress with Pockets by Pacific Rimbo. I've read a couple of fics by this author before, and I've really enjoyed them. I highly recommend The Secretary by this same fanfic author. By the way, any fanfictions that I mention, I will link in the description down below. If you don't know, you can read fanfictions completely for free. It's actually illegal for these authors to make money off of these fanfictions. So I use the site Archive of Our Own, so I will leave links to these specific fics down in the description, like I said. And so this one is a Pansy Parkinson Neville Longbottom fic, and it's novella length. By the way, there are audiobooks for both of these fics on Spotify. Highly recommend those audiobooks. They were very well done, but this one is pretty short and sweet. It's like 5 chapters, and we see that Pansy is like a fashion designer now, and she is definitely kind of bitter, kind of jaded, and she meets Neville just in a bar one night, and they have a one-night stand, and they start having an affair, which leads to more, of course. And I just love the vibe of Neville, you know, this sweet golden retriever man, with Pansy, who, like I said, is bitter and jaded, and you know, has never really been loved by someone the way that Neville loves her. And it's so well done. By the way, I gave Wait and Hope 5 stars and A Dress with Pockets 4 stars. So next up we have The Duke Identity by Grace Calloway. This is a book that I read for the Blushing Blue Stocking Society, which, if you don't know, that is a historical romance book club that I run with my amazing friend Lisa from Remarkably Lisa. So this was our pick for January. By the way, we are not doing a book club pick for February because it's a short month and we're both very busy in February, so we will be continuing the book club in March, and I need to announce our book club pick soon. But I'm just gonna quickly mention some things about this book. Neither of us loved this. We both gave it 3 stars. I would actually highly recommend though book 3 of this series, which I think is called Regarding the Duke. That is a marriage and trouble second chance with amnesia trope, and it's very well done. Also, Grace Calloway's books are very sexy and spicy. But like I said, this one was just okay. This one is a bodyguard romance. Our main characters are Harry and Tessa. I think I would have liked this book a lot more had the romance been paced better. I feel like I remember the heroine, Tessa, thinking to herself like 32% of the way through the book that she was already in love with Harry. I was like, whoa, like, let's slow down. What are we doing? We have like hundreds of pages left of this book. And then also we got to a point where the B plot of this book took over towards the end, and like I just didn't really care. So I was kind of just listening to this audiobook and waiting for the book to be over by that point. So yeah, I gave this 3 stars. It was just okay. Like I said, would highly recommend book 3 of the series. Next, I did read volume 10 of Sweat and Soap. Oh my God, guys. This is the second to last volume of this series, of my favorite manga series ever. Though I will say I didn't love this volume as much as all the others. Like, I've literally given volumes 1 through 9 5 stars each. This one I gave 4 stars, and I am kind of sad about it. Basically, I expected more of an emotional impact from this volume, given that this is the volume where our 2 main characters get engaged and they're planning their wedding. If you don't know, this is a slice of life romance, adult romance manga series about Kotaro and Asako, and the premise is weird. It's called Sweat and Soap because they both work for this soap company. Asako is very self-conscious because she sweats a lot, and then Kotaro is like obsessed with her natural scent, with the way that she smells. But yeah, I definitely expected more of an impact of like the moment they got engaged. I feel it felt like a bit too casual, considering like so much of their relationship is so not casual, and like every volume has made me cry. I definitely expected more from that, but part of me wonders, maybe leave a comment down below if you know, like I wonder if Japanese culture is different when it comes to like weddings and marriages. Like, is it a bit more of a casual thing? Like, that's the vibe that I got from this volume, is that like in Japanese culture, like you just go to the courthouse and get married and it's no big deal, and then you can have like an actual wedding party later on. But I don't know, is that the norm? It seemed to be the norm in this volume at least. So yeah, for that reason I gave this 4 stars. Still enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to the 11th and final volume. I have a feeling that that volume is gonna make me cry because it is the final volume, and I still highly recommend this series. Next up, I have Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare with this shiny cover. This is book 2 in her Infernal Devices series. This is a reread for me. Basically, I've decided to reread all of Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter books so that I can finally jump into the last couple of books in her most recent trilogy, which is the Last Hours trilogy. Basically, I just waited way too long to pick those books up, and then I realized that I had completely forgotten like everything that had happened in this world leading up to that series. So yeah, also it had been 5 years since I read the Mortal Instrument series and the Infernal Devices. So like it was definitely time for a reread. But yeah, like I said, this is book 2. This series takes place in London in 1878. This is like truly one of the best love triangles ever written, like ever. And this book is really where the love triangle kicks off, and it's devastating, and book 3, Clockwork Princess, is going to wreck me just as much as it did the first time that I read it. But I did bump up my rating of this slightly. Like the first time that I read this, I gave it like a 4.25 stars, and this time around I gave it 4.5 stars. I just love this setting. I love the characters of this series. I definitely have more of an emotional attachment to this cast of characters than the cast of characters in The Mortal Instruments, though I definitely enjoy those characters as well. But given that I'm like a historical romance girly, this series definitely calls to me more. So yeah, I just had a really great time rereading this. Also, this audiobook and the audiobook for City of Fallen Angels, one of the narrators is Ed Westwick, aka Chuck Bass, and I just have to say, I think he does a really great job narrating these audiobooks. Like, I was very pleasantly surprised by his performance. Next up is definitely one of my favorite books that I've read recently. Oh my god, this is absolutely my favorite book that I've read by this author so far. I am obsessed. This is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I have been meaning to read this book for months, ever since I read Love on the Brain back in like July of last year. I've given all of her books that I've read 5 stars, but this one, in my opinion, is absolutely her best. It's, oh my god, it's so good. So let's get into the plot of this one. We have Jack and we have Elsie. So Elsie has basically like a double life going on. By day, she's an adjunct professor. She teaches physics. She is a theoretical physicist. And by night, she goes on fake dates. There's this app called Faux where she pretends to be the girlfriend of these guys that hire her for various events or various reasons, what have you. And so we see at the beginning of this book that she's kind of broken a rule of Faux. Like, their policy is that you can only go on 1 date with each guy that books you through the site. But she has been fake dating this guy Greg for like 6 months, and his brother Jack is our hero. And so we find out that Elsie has applied for this full professor position at MIT. Then we find out that Jack also works in the physics department at MIT, and he seems to be kind of getting in the way of her getting this job. So Elsie like hates Jack. Meanwhile, Jack has like been obsessed with her ever since he first met her as his brother Greg's fake girlfriend, though he doesn't know that they're fake dating. So there's a lot of things going on, but oh my god, I loved this so much. I loved the academia setting. I loved that whole plot, like just like the non-romance plot. I really enjoyed. I also love that Jack is like the most emotionally intelligent romance hero ever. I am obsessed with him. I love that he is a clear communicator. I also just love that he's like more outgoing and more fun than Allie's previous heroes. She tends to write more like shy, maybe broody, like grumpy heroes, and Jack definitely is not that. Like I said, he is just like obsessed with Elsie from day one. She hates his guts at first, and so how they find their way to each other is just like everything. And I related to Elsie a lot in this book because she's the type of people pleaser that she will like mold herself to be the type of person that people want from her, depending on like what situation she's in or like who she's talking to. And Jack sees right through that bullshit, and that's one of the things I love about him being like such a clear communicator, is that he's like, Elsie, what do you want? You know, like she's so worried about pleasing other people that like she's not being herself, and this was just wonderful. Also, I do want to point out the steamy scenes in this. I thought they were really well done. Like they were very like intimate and intense. And again, like Jack being such a clear communicator and, you know, really, you know, wanting to know what she wants both in and out of the bedroom, like that was just wonderful. So yeah, highly recommend. I could go on about this book and about how much I love Elsie and Jack. Next up, I have volume 3 of Villains Are Destined to Die. This is a manhwa, so it's the Korean version of manga. And one of the amazing things about manhwa is that the illustrations are full color. And so this is a series that I had started back in December, and I read volume 1 and I was absolutely obsessed. This uses a trope that apparently is very common in manga and manhwa. We have our main character, she's playing this video game called like the Duke's Super Love Project, and you have 2 modes. You can either play normal mode, which is as the protagonist, as the heroine, or you can play in hard mode, which is as the villainess, as the antagonist. And basically when you play hard mode, it's like impossible to stay alive. There's like these 5 different love interests in the game, and in normal mode it's like really easy to get them to fall in love with you, and in hard mode it's like impossible. And so basically our main character, she's playing this game, she becomes obsessed with it, and then she wakes up in the game as the villainess Penelope, and so she's just trying to navigate this game and trying not to die, because she firmly believes that if she dies in the game that like she will actually die. And so I have to say volume 1 is still my favorite of the series. I'm finding that I'm not loving the series as much as I did in volume 1, which is making me really sad, because I love the premise of this. I love the idea, and volume 1 just set the bar so high, and like so far like I'm liking the series for what it is. Like I gave this volume 4 stars, but it's just not serving what volume 1 served for me. I'm just not as like addicted and invested in the story like I was in that first volume. So hoping that things pick up in volume 4. There was a plot line in this volume towards the end that I really enjoyed, because it involved my personal favorite love interest, who is like this villainous crown prince, and he's really hot. So let's hope that he becomes more of a major character in future volumes. Also, I read an ACOTAR fanfiction. I've read a couple of ACOTAR fanfics before, but not too many. This one I loved, but unfortunately there's no cover for it. This one was called The Song of the Sands by the Chaotic Wallflower. Like I said, I'm gonna link any fanfic that I mention in the description below, and I highly recommend this one specifically because it's a Cassian, Nesta, and Azriel fic. So if you've read A Court of Silver Flames, you might know, or you may not know, that Sarah actually wrote a threesome scene between Cassian, Nesta, and Azriel, but her editor had her take it out, and honestly I think that's for the best. I don't think that having a threesome scene would have worked for that book. Like that book is totally about Nesta and Cassian's story, and like having that kind of scene, I just think that would have been weird. Like maybe she should have included it as like a bonus scene, but anyways, so if you are looking for that kind of scene, that's what this fanfiction gives. And what's really fun about this fanfic is that, well, first of all, it's novella length. It's very short. I think it's like 5 chapters. I flew through this yesterday. But also it takes place in the day court, which is really fun because I feel like we don't get too much of the day court in the actual ACOTAR series. So seeing that setting in this fanfic was really cool. And this gave me everything I wanted, so I gave it 5 stars. Highly recommend. It was a really great time. So now let's get to my Sarah J. Maas reads, because I read both House of Sky and Breath and House of Flame and Shadow very recently. So House of Sky and Breath, this was a very long time coming for me. I had put off reading this book for literally years. Like this came out I think in like early 2022, and I'm like just now getting to it 2 years later. And so, I mean, that's what I get for waiting so long. Like I was definitely spoiled for a part of this ending, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. That's what I get for waiting so long, you know? But yeah, I finally read this. I reread book 1 in December, and oh my God, y'all, that rereading experience was just, it was just everything I needed. It was just everything my soul needed, and it reminded me why that book is so amazing in my mind. Like truly, like one of my top 5 favorite SJM books. And so I was very excited going into this one. This one I ended up giving 4.5 stars. I did feature this in that fantasy romance vlog that I mentioned earlier in the video. But basically I felt like there were some plot points that just kind of fizzled out. I feel like this book kind of lost its way about like page 500 to page 600-ish. Like yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this book could have been edited better. I don't know. I definitely expected more out of this book, but also I haven't given a Sarah J. Maas book less than 5 stars since reading like ACOTAR and like Crown of Midnight, like some of her early books. Everything since then has been a 5-star for me. So I was honestly shocked that this wasn't. I will say there's an amazing romance that happens in this book. Like there are some really great things going on, but I feel like this book could have been so much more overall than it was. So yeah. And then I just finished the other night the very much anticipated House of Flame and Shadow. I actually just came out with a vlog today for this book, so I will link that up in the cards above. I do want to point out that that vlog is full of like all the spoilers. Overall, I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I think that it was a fantastic way to end the main storyline of these first 3 books. I did find out that Sarah is going to continue this series, but it's just going to be a different storyline. So I thought that the way that this story concluded was like everything I could have hoped for. This was such an exciting and epic book to me personally. Definitely like one of my top favorite SJM books now. I like cannot stop thinking about especially like the last 100 pages of this book, because holy shit, that was wild. Like my brain is still broken from the ending of this. And yeah, like Sarah did that, you know? Like she wrote this book. It was amazing. It was as epic as I wanted it to be, and yeah. Now I want to reread all of her books because of how amazing this was, and I'm just remembering my experience reading her other books, and I want to relive that. And yeah, like this was just everything. I could go on and on for sure, but that is going to be it for my recent reads. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to discuss any of these books in the comments, or if you want to give me or anyone watching this video book recommendations. I always love getting recommendations from you guys. Also, I very recently hit 3,000 subscribers. Oh my God, why didn't I bring that up at the beginning of this video? Like, thank you guys so much for subscribing to my channel and watching my content. Like, you guys have no idea how much I love and appreciate all of you. Yeah, like this is just crazy. 3,000 people are subscribed to me. Wow. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video, guys. I would love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.